Good day everyone. What I want to show you today is how to generate a random position between 2 points in 3D space. So, as a demonstration here, I have placed two cubes at two different positions, and I want to get a random position between the two, imagining that these two cubes here represent the two corners of a bounding box. So they will give me random positions in like a square shape. Now, as you'll see when I run the demo here, it will generate loads of random positions, and then it will place a red cube in its place to demonstrate where the positions are being generated. And you'll see, even though they're being randomly generated, they will be confined between the two cubes. So I'll click play here. You can see they've begun. I'll switch back to scene view. And you can see here, it's generating loads of random positions between the two squares. But they are confined to a square. It's like a bounding box. So this might be useful to you if you're generating some environment in space or debris or something. And then you can see here in our second demonstration, between the two cubes, we're just going to generate positions directly between the two, as if there's a line drawn between them, and we're generating points on that line. So if you want to jump straight to the code, it's in the description for you. Please like the video if that helps you. And okay, let's jump into it with a fresh scene. Okay, so starting in a new scene, we're going to create a new script. So let's call that random position with my script prefix there. I'm going to want to have this script attached to something in the game world, so we'll execute when I click play. So I have my classic player game object, and I'll just drag that onto there. So when I click play, it will run with the player object. Okay, so let's open that one up. Cool, okay, now the script is open. Let's go here. The first thing we're going to want is our minimum and maximum positions. So the two vectors that we want to generate a position between. So we will say vector 3 minimum and vector 3 maximum. Cool, so when the script starts up, we want to give those two vectors some values. So we'll say minimum equals a new vector 3, and we'll say you can be 1, 1, 1. That should be good enough for our purposes. And then maximum, we'll do the same. New vector 3, and we'll say 10, 10, 10. So we just copy paste that, 10, 10, 10. So I will be asking the script to give me a random coordinate between 1, 1, 1 and 10, 10, 10. Let's keep it nice and simple. Okay, so in the demonstration you saw two different methods. So we're going to do the first one first, which is, I'll just add a comment here, random position between two vectors. So with this one, it will be as if the minimum and maximum positions are the top and bottom corners of a bounding box, and get me a random position value inside that bounding box, anywhere between the two vectors. Okay, so now unfortunately we can't do random.range and then say vector vector and say give me, output a random vector between two vectors randomly like that. We can't do that. We can do that with integers and floats, but not with vectors. So we'll have to do it manually, but that's okay. It'll give us something to learn. So we'll say float x equals random.range, and then I'm going to say minimum.x and maximum.x. So an easy way to think of this is our two coordinates in 3D space up here. We can break them down into x, y, and z. So we'll do the x first. So we're saying that the minimum of x is 1 here, and the maximum is 10. So we want to generate a random number between 1 and 10 to be part of our new random position. So when we do random.range, it will return a random value between this one and this one. So our new x coordinate will have a random value between 1 and 10, which is great. It's between the two vectors. So okay, we'll go ahead and copy paste this for y and z. Now unfortunately we have to do this, but that's okay, it's not the end of the world. And then finally we'll say vector3 random position, let's put it on, equals new vector3 and then x, y, z. So there we have it. We have now generated a new random position using these values between our two vectors. So for example, if it was to say random number between 1 and 10 is 5, random number between 1 and 10 is 3, random number between 1 and 10 is 7. So it will be 5, 3, 7. Great, perfect. Now let's move on to the second one, which was create a random position along a line between two vectors. So this one is, for example, this one here is if you're generating a scattered field, kind of like debris in space, whereas this one here is along a single line. So you could think of that as if you have a piece of rope that's being pulled from both sides, and the pressure is becoming too much, so at parts of the rope it starts to go ping and it starts to break. You could use this to have random breaks along the rope. Or if maybe you're using raindrops along the rope for different positions. You know, loads of use cases. Okay, so for this one, we'll start off by saying vector3 difference equals maximum minus minimum. Okay, so what this will do, our difference vector here, will be the difference between the bottom left corner and the top right corner, our minimum and maximum. And then we can go ahead and say vector3 offset equals difference times random dot range, and then we'll say 0 and 1. So we'll say take our difference between our two vectors and we're going to modify it, so we're going to times it by a value that's randomly generated between 0 and 1. So our random dot range here, if it was to return 1, which means it will give us the full difference, and that would mean that our offset here would end up being the same as maximum. If it was to return 0.5, that would cut the difference in half, and then our offset would only push the new value between minimum and maximum, right in the middle. And if our random.range value here returned 0, it means the difference would be 0 because there would be no difference, which means our new random value would be at minimum. So you can see that based on the number that returns here, it will change our difference between the two vectors to be a nice variety of different lengths. So what we do after that is we'll say vector3, another random, I'll say another random so it doesn't conflict with this one, another random position, and we'll say minimum plus offset. Okay, so we know the line between the two vectors starts at the minimum position and it moves towards the maximum position. And then we can get the difference between the two. We will modify the difference by timesing it by a random number, which will give us a new offset, kind of a new difference. And then we'll say minimum plus the new difference, the new offset, will give us a random position between maximum and min. So the offset, you could say the offset is actually new difference. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. Okay, so this is pretty much the final code for these two methods here, one here and one here. I hope that has been helpful and that you can make use of it in some way in your game. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.